Hey guys, it's Nick, and thanks for tuning in to a Long Island Wargaming Battle Report. This is going to be a game against my friend Brian, who is bringing a High Elf army. This is game 3 of 3, where we were just doing some practice games for CrossRoads. And this is a 2,500 point game, and this is Skaven versus High Elves. I'm using the same list I've been using if you want to check out previous videos, except this time I decided to add some gutter runners with poison. I brought 5, so I just cut around some extra rats on the field and got them out. And then for Ryan's list, we could take a look at that. He brought a noble and an archmage, unit of archers, unit of silver helms to help fill up the core, and then some reavers. Unit of Phoenix Guard and unit of White Lions, 2 bolt throwers, Sisters of Avalorn, 2 units of 5, which is great. 2 eagles, and then a frost phoenix. And the frost phoenix will be proxied by a manticore. So for magic, I got Wither, Filth, Cloud of Corruption, Plague, and the Dreaded 13th. And for the High Elves, he has Regrowth, Dwellers, Flesh to Stone, and Throne of Vines. And then here is our deployment, which I'll go over. So I have the doom wheels on the side, the slaves behind, and then I've got the 2 big units in the middle. And just note the terrain. We've got 2 buildings, but we have this impassable terrain in the middle here, which I'm essentially going to use to bottleneck my units, so I can't really get any flank charges against me. So I'm going to use that. Hopefully that'll help me not get charged in inconvenient places. And then the help hit's right in the middle. So Ryan actually has a lot of chaff and a lot of stuff that actually allows him to deploy more units than me. So I actually finished first, and I'm going to get the +1 to go first. And I also have my scouts here. And then this also inhibited a little bit of the vanguard move. And this shot here shows Ryan's vanguard with his 3 fast cavalry units. Now, Skaven get turn 1. And as you can see, my compulsory does awesome. I've got my 1 doom wheel rolls like 16, and he flies into the cavalry towards the top left of the image, and then the doom wheel and the helped abomination go towards those other fast cavalry. And just to touch up on Ryan's deployment, the silver helms are in the middle there, and the Phoenix is all the way to the right, and so are the White Lions with the World Banner Dragon thing, and the Phoenix Guard are over by the well. So this was kind of disappointing for Ryan for me to have massive rolls on my compulsory, but everyone does decide to move up full. And then into the magic phase, I get off Plague onto the fast cavalry by the Help Hit and the Doom Wheel. Now, essentially, I was just kind of hoping to decimate that unit and then maybe get a bounce. It might not have been the best idea because he could have bounced it back, but I think everything was 12 inches away that really mattered. All the infantry units, I think if the Help Abomination, the Doom Wheel had to take a toughness test, I wouldn't really be that upset. But he ends up dispelling with 2 6s, which is pretty awesome. And then I get poison onto the Doom Wheel because I feel like that's close enough and getting closer to the enemy. It's also an interesting choice because it will prevent him from charging with the chaff, because I get 2d6 attacks at strength 2, which is usually nothing, but if I get a bunch of 6s, then I'm actually getting wounds onto fast cavalry or onto eagles. And the Doom Wheel in the shooting phase ends up misfiring and is no longer moving 3d6, he's moving 2d6. And the lightning cannon kills 3 silver helms, so I'm off to a good start. And the Doom Wheel on the middle decides to kills 3 of the fast cavalry, 3 of the reavers, and my Doom Wheel destroys the reavers in close combat. Now, at this point, Ryan's pretty discouraged just based on the fact that my stuff's moving really quickly. He wasn't a sore loser or anything about it, but we spent some time discussing the fact that when I sit back with my Skaven army and I have this compulsory that just kind of dominates the middle of the field, it's kind of discouraging because he's got all this fast cavalry that are used for redirecting and the eagles for redirecting, but he really can't utilize that to his perception when I've got things that can just pivot and move. So I decided to go ahead and give him some advice and tell him, well, why don't you just railroad them, which kind of happened in our last game. And then he had a moment of enlightenment, and he decided to move like his eagles next to the doom wheels, the doom wheel and the Hellpit Abomination, and the Reavers next to the other doom wheel that's proxied there by the War Machine. So essentially I've got no choice but to go forward. So he was ready to kind of throw the game or really not try it, but I gave him some clues on to what to do to make it a little more interesting. And while that all went down, I ended up forgetting to overrun with my doom wheel that's far over to the left. So that's a misplay. There's going to be a couple misplays and a couple errors by both me and Ryan. So this game isn't perfect, as most Warhammer games. It's really hard to play without making an error, honestly. But I forget to overrun, which really sucks because now I'm no longer near I'm not going to be able to get near those 5 guys behind the well, the Sisters of Averlorn. Now, even with the overrun, he still would have been able to use the Eagle to put him, to force him to go off the field or into some random direction. But just to go over the rest of the moving in this image, the Phoenix Guard don't really move up. The White Lions make a run towards me. I also forgot to mention the Gutter Runners did inflict a wound onto the Phoenix over by the bolt thrower. Now 18-inch range is pretty good with the slings, and then you're rolling 10 shots for the 5 guys, so essentially you're rolling for 6s so you can get poison. It could take a War Machine down first turn. I'm thinking maybe adding another Gunner Runner or 2 to increase my odds, because really you're rolling for 6s with the poison. But anyway, the fast cavalry also just kind of get into the way. Now he kind of makes this little gambit for my Hellpit to go into, because he's got the Sisters with the fire weapons. I believe their arrows are magical and fiery, so he's going to try to get rid of regeneration, which is kind of annoying. And then the Frost Phoenix just kind of gets ready to charge or something. So we continue to play the game after maybe just deciding to not do it, but we go through it. He ends up making a pretty good comeback. He rolls 11 for Winds of Magic. So he really tries to make a difference in this magic phase. He tries to get off Throne of Vines, but I dispel it. Rear Growth ends up bringing back a Reaver, and the Phoenix gets a wound back from the lore attribute, I guess. The model can get a wound back, and then Dwellers Below is onto the bell, but I don't take it, so I scroll it, and that's over. And you can see here the Eagle's just ready to railroad these guys forward because I cannot pivot at all without taking me within an inch of the enemy, which is kind of a cheese move, but in a tournament you're going to do sort of things like that. And then in some shooting phase, some giant rats drop, and then the Hellpit Abomination takes 2 wounds from miscellaneous shooting. And then into Skaven turn 2, I make a charge onto the Eagle here. The Eagle fell off, but that's the base right there. And a mistake I made here is the Hellpit Abomination, from my understanding, can still do impact hits to friendly models, where the Doom Wheel can't, because I think it acts like a chariot, so it would stop with 1 inch. So I should have moved the Doom Wheel first, the Hellpit Abomination first, but I didn't. I decided to move the Doom Wheel first, because really he had these things forced to go into each other, so I really did not have a choice. So I was just like, whatever, I'll just roll for one of them and then the other. But I should have done the Hellpit Abomination first. I didn't, which means the Doom Wheel went first, and then the Hellpit decides to run into him and do 3 wounds to him, which is a huge misplay on my behalf. That's something I gotta remember. I gotta double check the FAQs, but as far as I understand, the Hellpit Abomination can still hit friendly models. So moving into the rest of my movement, I don't really move up too much. The Warp Fire Thrower is just getting ready to shoot the Eagle, which honestly I should have charged the other Eagle and shot that Eagle that's closer to the Hellpit Abomination, but I didn't really think well enough. The Doom Wheel moves up just a little bit because he's only moving 2d6. And I stay in the building. There's 1 less Gutter Runner from, I guess, miscellaneous shooting last turn. So this is when the game gets very interesting. The Grey Seer decides to do the Dreaded 13th onto the White Lions, which is great because he's got a 2-up ward save, but he won't get it. And I decide to roll a miscast, which, I mean, sucks, and you can see that large template covers a lot of my unit. So I end up losing 15, 16 guys, and the Gracier gets sucked into the warp, so he's gone for the game, which actually puts Ryan back onto the game board. He's able to get his magic off freely, which is not good for me. And I end up rolling slightly below average. I roll 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, so I'm able to drop 11 guys, which, I mean, is alright. I could have rolled better, but the Doom Wheel decides to shoot the Eagle, so he's dead. The Gunner Runners decide to shoot at the nearby cavalry, but you can see by this roll here, I get one shot, one hit, which is a poison hit, but only one, so I'm able to drop one guy. Pretty bad odds with all those dice. And then in combat, the Giant Rats actually do pretty poorly, and the Eagle decides to kill them. And I believe he ends up chasing me, but I get away. Now, into High Elf turn 2, there was some interesting charging, and me and Ryan were kind of talking about this together, so we were, coming up with his charge reactions as a team. The Frost Phoenix can't go into the Doom Wheel for two reasons. I've got poison attacks, and if he can't finish him off, especially since he's a high toughness, I can easily do some wounds with my random attacks. Now, the White Lions decided to charge onto the Doom Wheel, which means if those Giant Rats fled, he would probably hit the Doom Wheel. It wasn't a very hard roll. I think he needed a 6 or a 7. And he first has the Silver Helms go in. Now, there's only a couple left because some more shooting decides to kill them, so there's 4. They've got the Flaming Banner, so they're going to be able to hit that Helped Abomination and wreck him, or at least do some heavy damage. Now, if the Giant Rats had fled, or even if they didn't flee, they would have been able to instead hit the Doom Wheel. Whether I fled or not, he would have overran into them or been able to do a charge redirect. And with those great weapons, would have destroyed the Doom Wheel. And then if he, if the Giant Rats had fled, which I might have done because that would have allowed him to have to take another leadership test to redirect, which would have just been another opportunity for him to false charge. And then if he had hit the Doom Wheel, it would have been dead, and then I really wouldn't have wanted him fighting the Helped Abomination. So it would have just been a good situation for him. However, he false charges with those guys. And the cavalry charge the Giant Rats, and they flee. So now you can see here I have, a clear shot on those fast cav with the slaves if I decided to do that. And he moves his other Eagle next to the next to the Doom Wheel, so I have to still deal with going forward, and I do not yet rally those. Those Giant Rats are running, remember from last turn. And just going into his magic phase, he gets off Throne of Vines, unfortunately, which is, really good for him. And then he miscasts Regrowth, but with Throne of Vines, he discounts it on a 2+, so he doesn't have to worry about that. And then 3 Silver Helms come back, which is huge. Now the Silver Helms are going to be able to kill a Helped Abomination, no problem. So, in shooting, some Gutter Runners die, and essentially moving into combat, he's able to kill the Helped Abomination, no problem with all of those charges. So, he decides to make an overrun just to get away from the Doom Wheel. He needed a 12 to hit the Warp Fire Thrower, and he rolls 3 6s, which is devastating because now I'm not going to have a turn to shoot with the Warp Fire Thrower, and now his Silver Helms are getting up in my face, so I'm not really excited about that. Now we can just move into Skaven turn 3. You can see here is my movement. Really not much going on. What I should have done with the Doom Wheel is turned them around and just went into the Silver Helms and finished them off from behind. But I decided to instead just send him into the White Lions in hopes of getting some impact hits. And, at this point he has a bunch of wounds on him, so he becomes susceptible to any shooting. But I decided to go in there because I just needed to grind down that unit, and he's already made his money's worth, I think. But the slaves charge into the Eagle near that top Doom Wheel, and that top Doom Wheel is just running towards the to the Sisters of Avalorn. Now, in the magic phase, I can get off Vermintide, but he decides to dispel it, which is not hard for him to do because he's got a nice +4 to dispel at this point. And in shooting, I'm able to kill the eagle that the slaves were in combat with because it was the closest target, so not a big deal. And the hell pit, the doom wheel ends up misfiring, so I'm not able to kill some free white lions. But I mean, it wasn't likely I was going to anybody with the 2-up ward save versus magical attacks. In combat, the doom wheel ends up biting it, and he's down. And as suspected, this drops, which is fine because now he's going to go into the freaking plague furnace, which is fine because that'll end up happening on his turn. So I mean, I won't have to do the wrecker attack, which is what I want. I don't want to destroy all of those guys because I want him to flee and give me the overrun. For High Elf turn 3, here is his movement. You can notice that the White Lions are actually got a couple miles back because he actually is able to get regrowth onto them, and he gets 6 White Lions back. The Sisters of Avalorn shoot down the Doom Wheel, and then into the combat here against the Plague Furnace, the monks are able to kill up to, I guess it was 6 or 7 of them, so there's only 2 left, which I'm fine about. I need to win that combat. And in this image here, you can see that I chase them down, and gets me really close to the Phoenix Guard that have moved up. And into Skaven turn 4, the Plague Monks make a charge onto the Phoenix Guard. The slaves charge the Sisters of Avalorn, and they decide to make a run toward the table edge, which I'm very happy about. And really for magic, I don't really get anything off. I try to do Vermintide to maybe hit the War Machines or something in the back. However, nothing really happens. The bell actually is able to get off the strength 7, the toughness 7 one, where everything on the battlefield with toughness 7 or more takes D3 multiple wounds, which ends up doing a wound to each of the bolt throwers. I was kind of hoping to kill one at least, but I didn't roll too lucky. But then this did get me thinking about the whole flesh to stone thing, is if I did let the White Lions at some point get flesh to stone with toughness 7, and I get that result, then I would do a lot of damage because I don't think it's considered a magical attack, so it would go ahead and, or maybe it is a magical attack, I don't know. Either way, their 2+ ward save would save them, but if they don't get that 2+ ward save, each of those guys would take a wound at multiple D3, which wouldn't be an issue because it's infantry, but just something to think about. So I end up also blowing up that building, so that pad is just to show the difficult terrain from the bell blowing up the building. And in this combat, I end up killing 5, 6, 7 Phoenix Guard, and I lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Plague Monks. Now, I was about to win this combat based on the charge, the ranks, the combat res. I was in really, really good shape, but then the wrecker attack decides to misfire, which actually kills most of those guys that you see down there. I was up, but then I lose, I think 4 of those 8 guys comes from the wrecker attack. So unfortunately, I end up only winning by 1, and he passes his leadership test. So I still have frenzy and whatnot, but I was kind of hoping the wrecker attack would do enough damage to kind of get them out of there. And even with the plague banner and the plague priest, I was only able to kill 6 guys, which doesn't sound bad, but you know what? He was 5-upping armor a lot. He was getting those 4+ ward saves, so the Phoenix Guard are really hard against the strength 3 units. Even with rerolling miss hits and miss wounds, I didn't do as many as I thought I would have. And we'll move on to High Elf turn 4. These guys do not rally, so they run off the table. And then you can see here in this image that the Frost Phoenix has decided to back up behind the impassable terrain so he wouldn't get a hit by the lightning cannon. And I really don't have too many clan rats in there, so I'm debating on whether I go in against the White Lions or not. These slaves are just getting ready to take on a charge from the fast cavalry or whatnot. But he decides to move up the White Lions conservatively, there really isn't too much fast cavalry running around at this point. There's some archers in the back that are still hanging out. Um, he is able to do 3 wounds with one of the bolt throwers onto the lightning cannon, and then to back up into magic, he gets off Throne of Vines, and I'm not able to get it. And then he tries to get off Skin to Stone onto, I believe it was the Phoenix Guard, but I dispelled that. And then he gets off Regrowth, and 4 Phoenix Guard come back. So that's kind of not good for me. And I ended up losing 5 more Plague Monks, and now that he's kind of got guys back, I only get him down to 2 or 3, so I'm really not doing too great. My Plague Priest kills his champion in a challenge, and we can move on to Skaven turn 5. I decided to just make a charge. I mean, it might not have been the best decision. I've got enough heroes in there that at initiative 6, they'd be going before these guys. At strength 5 with halberds, they'd be going. They would be going at 2's to wound. So I don't know. The 3 chieftains hopefully would help me out here. I was going for some impact hits, but the impact hits really don't end up doing much for me. I'd roll a 13 with the bell, which is nice, I guess, because everyone gets to attack, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. And then I end up dispelling Throne of Vines, which is kind of pivotal. And let's see. I don't end up breaking the White Lion's unit. I do enough damage, but he's stubborn. And then to kind of close out this game, he ends up regrowing like another 6 White Lions, so I'm not able to really deal with that unit. It's a grind fest here with the Plague Furnace and the Priest, and at some point I believe the Priest dies, so really I thought I had this combat, and I really didn't after Regrowth, and there was 4 ward saves. The Wrecker attack did nothing for the most part. It was kind of useless. You can notice that the engineer is up there so he can shoot his Doom Rocket at the archers just for some victory points. I'm able to kill a bunch, but it doesn't make a difference. I feel like these slaves, instead of turning here to do a flank charge, probably should have went around and tried to eat up the bolt throwers and the archers in the back. Maybe go for the other Avalorn unit, but yeah. So you can see here I've got the White Lions grinded down. I'm slowly eating them, but they keep coming back. Finally, the Phoenix comes in and helps finish up that combat. But I'm unbreakable, so I'm just going to sit there. And White Lions come back again in, turn 5 and turn 6. The annoying thing about turn 5 magic for the High Elves is Throne of Vines gets off, and then the Irresistible Forces Flesh to Stone and gets the White Lions back. And he irresistibles for both of them, and he discounts the Irresistible Force miscast both times, so I wasn't able to, watch his guys blow up and kill themselves or anything. So Throne of Vines really helped out Ryan here, especially with all these miscasts. And even with the flank charge from the slaves, nothing. So I kind of went from a really good position in this game to just, really getting screwed. And it really has to do with the Grace here being gone. When I can't get Plague off and when I cannot get off the Dreaded 13th, it's just not good. I mean, I had Cloud of Corruption too, which when all that fast cavalry and all those units closed in on me, I could just nail everything and do d6 hits at strength 5, no armor. And, I mean, that would have been great against the Silverhelms and everything, but, I mean, I really just got bad luck towards the end of this game. And just some closing out images here. I'm not going to go through all the details, but just to reflect on the game, I was in a pretty good position to start. But man, when you lose your level 4 caster general, it's just rough. The Gracier is pretty good for the most part against all that, miscast and whatnot, because he's got a decent ward save. He's good against the magic oncoming at him with a 2+ ward save, like death magic and whatnot. But even if he takes a wound or 2 from something, you have the Scalm, so you can regenerate wounds when you need to. It's just when you have to roll for the warp, or whatever the result is on the miscast table. I think I've rolled a 4. When you have to roll that, 1, 2, 3, and he's just gone, that hurts, because there's nothing I can do about that. The ward saves can't help me, the extra wounds, the Scalm, nothing. He's just gone. And I lose my 18-inch level, my 18-inch leadership 7 bubble. It just sucks, and this is the first time I've seen that happen in a very long time. That the Grey Seers just picked off the bell, and the fact that that large template just killed all my clan rats is just just really hurt. Some other things to discuss is, I mean, in a tournament, if my opponent's going to throw the game after the first turn or two, I'm going to let him. I'll just take whatever points I can, even if I don't get to play out the game, which might be, less fun. But I mean, I was able to help Brian with the whole railroading thing, which kind of ended up working against me, of course, but at least it was a learning experience for all of us. I got to make sure that the Doom Wheel goes ahead of, doesn't get hit by the Hell Pit, so I got to make sure maybe next time I don't let my compulsory get too close, especially if someone's going to go ahead and railroad them. And, I mean, obviously the compulsory is not as useless as Brian thought. And then I gotta just make sure I'm getting my rules right. I gotta double check the FAQ. There's just so much to remember, and when you have life going on, it's tough to read up on all these Warhammer stuff, and there's just so many things to remember. But it's interesting, the whole Throne of Vines and the Toughness 7 thing, where maybe I should have let a unit get Toughness 7, especially if it wasn't near me for combat. I can dispel it later, especially since I didn't have my Grey Seer to cast effective magic. Man, if somebody gets that off onto a unit of infantry, and then the bell goes ahead and says, "Up, you've got strength, you've got toughness 7. Well, you know what? You're going to take a wound at D3, multiple." So, I mean, he'll still get saves, especially these elves with all the ward saves and stuff. But still, that's a tough one to deal with. So that's pretty interesting. It was interesting to see that happen in this game. But really, it's just good at taking down war machines and or say Tomb Kings. Sphinxes and Necrosphinxes and War Sphinxes or whatever, but it would have been nice to see Cloud of Corruption, like I said, but yeah, it was a good game, and I'm glad that I'm getting my ass kicked, even though it looks like I'm starting strong. I'm, still want to make some more tweaks. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. The Gutter Runners were alright. I mean, they did some wounds, but the thing is, with Regrowth, they were just coming back, and the lore attribute for the caster was, bringing wounds back to the Frost Phoenix, so that's pretty effective. But, man, Regrowth is tough, and, I mean, lore of high magic is cool and all, but this lore is, it's annoying when I'm grinding down these elves that are tough to kill just based on the fact that they get these fancy ward saves like the Phoenix Guard, and then for a bunch of them to just pop back, that's tough. The Hell Pit Abomination would have been able to take the 3 or 4 guys charging them, but when he gets 3 of them back, I mean, with the lances and the piling attacks, he just had no chance. So there's just a couple mistakes on my behalf, but I mean, lore life is pretty good. I just gotta make sure you get Throne of Vines dispelled. But honestly, I'm gonna leave this game as a loss based on the fact that I lost my Grey Seer to the Warp, which is something I could not control. And I mean, at that point, it was just kind of a let's see what happens from here. So, love to hear some comments and or advice from you guys. And this is the 3rd game against Ryan. We're probably gonna do some more, but I don't know if we're gonna just what armies we're gonna play. So we'll see how that goes. But I might play a little different list with the Skaven. I know some people are recommending Dual Furnace, so maybe I'll try that out. Not really my style, but maybe I'll do that in the next game. So again, any comments or questions, leave them below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.